You don't get to call her family when you only see her as a guest. Hey everyone, to tonight on Revenge Stories 94, we're stepping into a moment so quiet, so devastatingly elegant, it shattered years of polite exclusion. Imagine a child in a gold dress handing a sealed red box across a table, and the woman who opened it, she didn't just read a letter, she read her undoing. This is a story about legacy, belonging, and the power of speaking when silence becomes betrayal. So before we begin, please subscribe if this kind of true emotional storytelling speaks to you, and drop a comment with your city. I'd love to know where you're listening from. You're standing by the fireplace holding an untouched glass of wine. Eden's in the center of the room, just 7 years old, but carrying herself like someone twice her age. She picked the gold dress herself, sparkly, a little too big in the shoulders, but she insisted on it. Said it made her feel like she belonged. And now she's standing in front of a table full of adults too busy laughing and raising glasses to notice her. Except for you. You see every flicker in her eyes. Her small hands are clutching a box, red wrapped, silent, deliberate. She looks at your mother-in-law, Gloria, sitting at the head of the table with her signature glass of rosé. The room is still buzzing with dessert plates and shallow toasts. And then Eden says it, clearly, firmly. Graham, Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again. The room stops, like a needle dragging across a vinyl record. Forks freeze, cheeks flush, and someone's champagne flute tips slightly but doesn't fall. Gloria blinks once, twice. Her smile twitches, unsure if this is some childish prank or worse, some public confrontation. She chuckles, "What's this, sweetheart?" But Eden doesn't flinch. She places the box gently on the white lace tablecloth. Her hands tremble not from fear, but from the weight of restraint breaking. Then she walks back to her seat. Gloria touches the box like it's a spider. Her polished fingernails hesitate at the edge of the ribbon. You already know what's inside. Sean packed it months ago. Only if she does it again, he told you. Only if Eden sees it for herself. The weight in your chest shifts. Not panic, not regret, something else. Relief. Because for the first time in 7 years, your daughter stopped asking for permission to matter. She claimed it. And in that moment, with the lights of the tree behind her and a velvet cushion beneath her, she didn't look like a child anymore. She looked like truth walking through a house made of performance. Would you have done it? Would you have spoken if you were her? Maybe not, but she did. And now everything is about to change. You should have known it would happen again. You told yourself this year would be different. Different tree, different energy, maybe a different Gloria, but she never changes. She just gets better at the performance. The room smells like cinnamon and champagne. Gloria's house always looks like a magazine cover, every cushion fluffed, every gift perfectly aligned beneath the 12-foot artificial tree trimmed in gold. It's all curated, so photogenic, so presentable, unless you're Eden. She sits on the edge of the room like an afterthought, still clutching the candle Gloria handed her just 20 minutes ago. Lavender scented, in a plain glass jar, no bow, no name, just a sticky note in cursive for Clarissa's stepdaughter, misspelled and unbothered. Meanwhile, Maddie unwraps a new iPad. Jonah gets a personalized Lakers jersey and a thick envelope of cash. The applause is loud enough to shake the ornaments. You glance at Eden, watching her lips press into a line. Her fingers wrap tighter around the candle. You want to scream. Instead, you say softly, "That's beautiful, honey." She nods. Doesn't look up, and then Gloria does it, the same thing she's done before. She leans over and whispers to her sister-in-law, not knowing you're behind her. "We just have to be careful. She's not really family. You know, she's Sean's choice, like Eden is a couch your husband picked out at a yard sale. Your breath leaves you in one short exhale. You close your eyes, count to 5. You promised yourself you wouldn't ruin Christmas, but you didn't promise you'd keep letting your daughter be treated like a guest at her own table. Later in the kitchen, you corner Sean. Your voice is barely audible over the sound of dishes clinking. Did you hear what she said?" He doesn't answer, just stares at the floor. "She said Eden isn't blood, not real, not family." What are we still doing here? Sean exhales hard like he's been holding his breath all evening. "I told Eden. If it ever happens again, she decides. I gave her the box." You blink. She remembers that. She's never forgotten. You stare through the window above the sink. Outside, the fairy lights wrap around a fake pine tree in the yard. It glows pretty and cold. You remember the Thanksgiving 3 years ago? Every grandchild got a golden plate with their name painted on it. Eden's seat had a plastic one from the back of the cupboard. You had whispered, maybe Grandma just forgot. Eden had whispered back, maybe I don't count. That was the night she stopped asking why. She's sitting on the carpet now next to Maddie trying to look interested in a glittery bracelet. But her eyes are quiet, too quiet for a 7-year-old. And you realize something: you've been teaching your daughter how to survive exclusion without ever meaning to. Every time you smiled through it, every time you said, just be patient, sweetheart, you were handing her the blueprint for invisibility. She followed it perfectly. And now she's breaking it. Because tonight she didn't just notice the cruelty, she answered it with a box. Would you have dared at her age? Would you have dared even now? The box is still unopened, sitting on the table between untouched slices of apple pie. Gloria hasn't touched it again. But Eden's watching, not with hope, not with fear, with knowing. And maybe that's what makes it beautiful. Not that you tried to protect her, but that she learned to protect herself. And somehow, you don't feel ashamed. You feel proud. There's a strange calm in your chest, like something old finally exhaled, because the person who taught you how to shrink just taught your daughter how to stand. You met Sean at a small art gallery in Santa Barbara. He laughed at the same weird modern installation. You did a tangle of wire and plastic forks shaped like a swan. You thought anyone who laughs at this might just understand me. He did. Still does. It was never him you doubted. It was everything that came with him. The Salas family introduced themselves with warm casseroles and louder hugs. Gloria, his mother, had that magnetic presence, the kind that makes everyone bend slightly in her direction. At first she welcomed you, praised your cornbread, told you we need more women like you in this family. You believed her. You believed her through the first Christmas when Eden got a sticker book while the other kids opened jewelry boxes. You believed her when she hugged you and forgot your birthday the next week. You believed her when she made comments like Eden's lucky to have Shannon. Most men wouldn't do that. Do what exactly? Love a child he chose, act like a father, be one you swallowed it all, because that's what you were taught. Don't stir conflict, don't be the difficult wife, don't alienate your in-laws. And so you tried. You wore the colors Gloria liked. You brought the dishes she raved about. You joined every group chat, even when you were added to it 2 days late. Still, you always knew. You were the other woman in Gloria's carefully curated family narrative. And Eden, she was a placeholder. You told yourself you were overthinking it. But it was always in the smallest moments, like when family photos were framed without her, or when Eden's name was misspelled on party favors, or when you suggested a joint gift for the kids, and Gloria said, let's keep it simple just for the real grandbabies. You didn't say anything, not then, because Eden was watching, because you thought that if you endured, she'd eventually be embraced, because you thought that if you smiled enough, they'd soften. But kindness without boundaries isn't grace, it's erasure. And that's what was happening. You were being erased, and worse, Eden was being erased beside you. You remember the moment Eden stopped bringing her little crafts to family dinners. She used to make them with wild, glittery pride, bracelets, bookmarks, clay magnets. Until one Christmas, Gloria unwrapped a beaded bracelet from Eden, glanced at it, and said, oh, how creative. Eden never made another one. You wanted to scream. You didn't. Instead, you picked up the wrapping paper. You told Eden she's just tired, baby. She didn't believe you. She was only 5, but she already knew when she was being pitied. You think of all the times you rehearsed the words in your head. This isn't okay. You're hurting her. Why does she have to earn a seat you freely gave the others? But you never said them, because you were afraid of being labeled dramatic, or worse, resented by Sean. And the truth is, Sean didn't ignore it. He saw it. You remember the night he came into Eden's room after Jonah's birthday. She had asked him, am I Jonah's cousin too? He just kissed her forehead. Later that night, you heard the printer running. That's when he printed the adoption papers again. That's when he packed the box. He never told Gloria. He told Eden, if you ever feel like she doesn't see you give her this, you don't need to yell. Just let her read. That moment changed something in you, because you realized Sean wasn't choosing silence. He was handing Eden the power. He wasn't fighting Gloria with words. He was anchoring Eden with proof. And that's what love sometimes looks like. Not loud declarations, but a sealed box, and a father who finally saw the wound you'd carried alone for too long. You had fought so hard to fit into that family, but what if the fight was never yours to win? What if the whole time you were trying to earn a space in a house that had no room for someone like you and no seat for your daughter? And what if the truest family moment was watching your child hand a box across a table and reclaim her place with quiet grace? You can still see her face when she opened the little paper bag. Lavender, in a plain glass jar, no ribbon, no name, no love, just a cheap scented candle with a tiny tag stuck on. To Clarissa's stepdaughter, not even her name, just a label, a reminder, a rejection sealed in scented wax. You sat on the edge of the velvet couch while the others clapped and cheered as Maddie unwrapped a diamond-cut charm bracelet and Jonah showed off his new Bluetooth earbuds. Eden sat beside you, legs tucked under her, holding that candle like it might mean something if she waited long enough. She didn't say a word, didn't frown, didn't cry. But you saw her breath hitch for just a second, like the air in the room had shifted, like something inside her finally understood this wasn't forgetfulness, this was on purpose. You wanted to fix it, wrap her up in your coat, drive away, call out every fake smile in the room. But she just whispered, "Do you think Grandma meant to leave off my name?" You looked at Sean. He was staring at the floor again. His hands were folded so tight his knuckles were white. He didn't answer, because he knew. And so did you. And so did she. Later that night, you watched Eden slip the candle into her backpack. No words, just the quiet practice movements of a child who's learned to carry what doesn't belong. She asked if she could wear her gold dress again tomorrow. You said yes. Then she said it softly but with certainty, "I want to give Grandma the box tomorrow at brunch." You nearly dropped your tea. "Are you sure, sweetheart?" She nodded. "Dad said I could. I think it's time." You blinked back tears. She wasn't even brushing it off with a joke or looking to you for permission. She was clear, composed, brave. You realized something right then. You were trying to protect her from a wound she already lived inside of, and now she was ready to walk out of it on her own feet. That night after Eden fell asleep, you stood in her doorway for a long time, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. The candle still peeked out from her backpack zipper like it was watching you back. Sean walked in and sat on her bed. He didn't say anything at first. Then he looked at you and asked, "Did I wait too long?" You thought about all the nights you waited for him to say something, anything, all the times you whispered your pain instead of naming it. You sat down beside him and shook your head. You did it exactly when she needed you to, because that's what mattered now, not the years of excuses, not the false hopes, not the pretty lies dressed up as family tradition. What mattered was that Eden didn't have to wonder anymore if someone saw her. Her father saw her, and he gave her a weapon stronger than anger proof. The next morning she woke up early, did her curls again, picked the same sparkly headband she wore the day Sean signed the adoption papers. You didn't ask why. You knew it wasn't a costume, it was armor. She held the red box in her lap the entire drive to Gloria's house, both hands, no fidgeting. And as you pulled into the familiar cul-de-sac in Palo Alto lined with manicured hedges and perfectly staged porches, you felt your breath catch. It looked the same wreath, the same ceramic angel in the window, the same smell of honey-glazed ham wafting through the walls. But everything was different now because this time you weren't here hoping for approval. You weren't here trying to prove anything. You were here to make sure your daughter's silence didn't swallow her whole. During brunch, Gloria complimented Maddie's dress 3 times. She never mentioned Eden's. Eden didn't seem to care. She picked at her eggs, sipped her orange juice, waited. She wasn't anxious. She wasn't looking for a signal. She knew her cue, and when dessert plates were passed and the clinking of forks filled the room, she stood, just stood. The room didn't notice at first, but you did. You held your breath as she walked around the table to the head seat, Gloria's throne, and placed the box in front of her. Then Eden looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." And then she sat back down. No performance, no tears, no anger, just truth delivered calmly wrapped in red paper and years of quiet. Gloria stared at the box like it had teeth. Her smile twitched just slightly before she let out a breathy little laugh. "Oh, what's this, darling? Is this a craft project?" She said it too loud, the kind of loud that hopes someone else will laugh too, so she won't be alone. But no one laughed. Even the cousins had stopped chewing. Maddie looked confused. Jonah just blinked at the red wrapping paper. Sean's sister leaned forward slightly as if trying to read the air. You didn't move, you didn't breathe. Your hand found Sean's under the table. His fingers were ice cold and rigid. Gloria finally peeled back the paper slow like she was performing a magic trick she didn't believe in. First, she lifted the photo. It was framed in white wood with gold writing at the bottom. Sean holding Eden in a hospital chair, frosting on her cheek, her little arms wrapped tightly around his neck. The day of her adoption ceremony, the day he chose her forever. The gold writing said, "Day one, Dad." Gloria's hand froze mid-air. She didn't look at anyone. She just set the frame aside and opened the envelope beneath it. You knew what came next. She unfolded the first document, a notarized copy of Eden's adoption papers. Sean's name listed clearly under father, court seal, signature, date. No room for misinterpretation, no loophole, no pretending. Gloria blinked hard like maybe the paper would change if she stared long enough. But the words didn't move. Then came the letter. You'd never read it. Sean had written it alone one night after Eden went to bed. You only knew it existed. You never asked what it said. Now Gloria was reading it line by line aloud in her head. And with every word you saw her mouth tighten, her jaw twitch, her pride split in slow motion. Sean didn't flinch, but his grip on your hand tightened. And then she read this line, Mom, if you're reading this, it means you've hurt my daughter again. Not just mine by love, but mine by law, by promise, and by choice. Gloria's face flushed deep and then pale. She flipped to the next part and her lips moved silently as she read, I have spent years watching you treat Eden like a guest in her own bloodline. I hoped it would change. I hoped you would open your heart the way I did. But if she's handed you this box, it means she saw what I saw, that you still don't see her. Eden is my daughter. She is your granddaughter. If you can't love her equally, then you don't love me. And if that's true, you are no longer welcome in our home or our lives. Sean. The letter slipped from her fingers like it was on fire. It landed on her plate beside the uneaten pie. She looked around the room like someone had just stripped the wallpaper off her curated life. No one said a word. Then without warning, Gloria screamed. Not a yell, not a protest. A raw, sharp, ugly scream like something inside her cracked clean down the center. She shoved her chair back so hard it scraped the floor. Maddie jumped. Jonah dropped his spoon, and Gloria, the woman who ran holidays like a Broadway show, now stood with her hands shaking, her voice breaking as she hissed, I can't believe you'd embarrass me like this. Sean stood slowly, his voice was calm. I see. We didn't embarrass you. You did that all by yourself. Gloria turned to you, her mouth curled. This is your doing. You turned my son against his own mother. You rose from your chair slowly, evenly, and you didn't yell. You didn't apologize. You simply said Eden gave you a gift, a chance to see her. You chose not to, that was all. No theatrics, no vengeance. Just truth delivered with the same calm your daughter had modeled for you. The fireplace crackled in the silence. Someone's fork clinked gently on porcelain. Sean reached for Eden's coat. Ready to go, baby, he asked softly. Eden nodded. She stood, folded her napkin, and walked toward the door. No one stopped you, no one followed, not Gloria. Not the cousins, not even the people who once claimed they were just trying to keep the peace. Because in that moment, they knew peace never lived in a house that asked a child to earn her worth. You walked out into the December sun holding Eden's hand in one, Sean's in the other. And for the first time in years, you didn't feel like outsiders. You felt whole. You hear it again in your sleep sometimes. That scream. The sound Gloria made not because she was confused, but because the mask she'd worn for years had been ripped off in front of everyone she worked so hard to impress. It wasn't just Eden who called her out. It was the truth, quiet, formal, undeniable, that exposed her. And she couldn't control it, couldn't spin it, couldn't label it as just a misunderstanding, because adoption papers don't stutter, legal names don't lie, and a photo of a man holding a child he calls his own, that shatters even the most carefully crafted illusions. You remember how Gloria's face contorted when she reached for someone, anyone at the table, hoping they'd jump in to defend her. But no one did. Even her sister-in-law looked down at her coffee. And Sean, he stood tall. Not angry, not apologetic, just done. "You've made her feel like a guest in this family for the last time," he said calmly. And then Gloria, in one final act of deflection, looked at Eden and spat, "I did my best. I never asked for this situation. She's not even ours." Time stopped again. Eden blinked, her little hands clenched into fists, but she didn't cry. She didn't need to. Sean took one slow step forward. "Don't speak about my daughter like she's an accident I was forced to love. She is mine, fully. And if that's a problem for you, this is the last time we'll be in your house." Gloria's lip quivered. "You're going to cut off your own mother," he didn't flinch. "No, you did that yourself when you decided my child didn't count." That's when it happened, the shift, the visible collapse of her power in that room. Because no one, no cousin, no uncle, no friend stood up for her. Not because they agreed with you, but because deep down, they always knew, they'd seen it. They'd heard the little digs, the subtle exclusions, the forgetfulness. They just never thought anyone would finally say something. But Eden did. The ride home was silent but not heavy. Eden sat in the back seat, the box now empty, resting on her lap. She watched the trees roll by as if cataloging a new season. Then she spoke quietly. "Do you think Grandma read the whole letter?" Sean met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Every single word." Eden smiled. Not wide, just enough. The kind of smile you make when you know you're done, begging to be seen. "You weren't sure what would happen next. Maybe Gloria would call, maybe there'd be a storm of messages, a last attempt at control, but none came. And strangely, that silence didn't feel like rejection. It felt like release. You and Sean didn't talk about it much at first. You didn't need to. There was a mutual understanding in your home now. A shared relief. You weren't walking on eggshells anymore. You weren't packaging holidays to make someone else feel comfortable. You weren't shrinking so someone else wouldn't have to stretch. You were just living. Then 1 week after that brunch, something unexpected arrived in the mail. A small padded envelope addressed to Eden. The handwriting was childlike, uneven. The return address, Maddie. Inside was a silver bracelet with a tiny heart charm and a note. "I'm sorry Grandma was mean. You're my cousin forever. I bought this with my allowance. Love, Maddie." You watched Eden read it once, then again. She didn't ask if she could wear the bracelet. She just slid it onto her wrist and smiled. You could feel the healing in the room. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cinematic. It was simple, gentle, real. That moment reminded you children don't need perfection. They need belonging. They need to know that someone sees them clearly and loves them without conditions. And Maddie, in her own quiet way, had reached across the divide and said, "You're not alone. You never were." You looked at Sean as Eden twirled her wrist in the sunlight, admiring the way the heart charm glinted. He was watching her eyes soft. There was something different in his gaze now. Not guilt, not hesitation, pride. "I should have done it sooner," he said that night, sitting on the edge of Eden's bed. You walked over and kissed his forehead. You did it exactly when she needed you to. And that's the thing, then, isn't it? There's never a perfect time to defend someone you love. But there is a point when silence becomes complicity. And on that day, over champagne and golden wrapping paper, your family chose differently. You didn't make a scene. You made a stand. And that box, it wasn't just paper and ink. It was proof. It was boundary. It was the line in the sand you'd been afraid to draw, but your daughter did. For herself and for you. You always imagined that cutting ties with family would feel loud, explosive, like slamming a door and hearing it echo down a hallway you can never walk back through. But the truth, it was quiet. There were no calls, no texts, no long-winded explanations, just the soft, strange quiet that follows when something toxic finally dies out. And in that stillness, you found peace. You waited in those first few days for some kind of backlash. Maybe Gloria would send a letter. Maybe she'd post something thinly veiled on Facebook. Maybe she'd try to twist the story to the rest of the family, but nothing came. No one reached out, no cousin asked questions, no sibling tried to mediate. They all just stayed silent. And in that silence, something deeper settled in your chest. You weren't angry anymore. You weren't even sad. You were done. Eden never asked about Gloria again, not once. She didn't ask why her name wasn't on the holiday card list, didn't wonder if there'd be another cousin sleepover she'd be left out of. Instead, she started laughing louder, dancing in the living room again, drawing pictures she actually showed you instead of hiding them away, like maybe they weren't good enough for someone else's fridge. You noticed little things first. She started saying our family when referring to just the three of you. She stopped checking the group text photos of everyone else's matching pajamas. She stopped measuring her worth against someone else's crumbs. One night you were cleaning out the hall closet when you came across the lavender candle, still unused, still unlit, still labeled to Clarissa's stepdaughter. You held it in your hand and debated whether to toss it, but you didn't. You placed it on the bottom shelf not out of reverence, but as a reminder, because that candle wasn't a gift, it was a mirror. It showed you exactly where the line had been drawn and how far you were willing to go not to cross it, until you did. That December, you started building new traditions. No big brunches, no performative family photos, no elaborate trees for show, just the three of you. Eden helped you bake cookies, real cookies, not store-bought presentation pieces dusted with edible glitter. You watched Home Alone in pajamas on a blanket fort. You drank hot chocolate with too many marshmallows and zero guilt. There was no need to look around and wonder who forgot her name this time. No more pretending that a paper crown and plastic smile could replace affection. Sean seemed lighter too. He stopped hesitating before taking Eden's hand in public, stopped holding back when someone asked how many kids he had. One, he said clearly, my daughter Eden. And it wasn't performative, it was peace. The kind that settles in your bones when you know you've done the hard thing and it was right. You still remember the first school play after the fallout. Eden was cast as a shooting star, just one line, but she wore her foil-covered costume like it was custom designed. You and Sean sat in the second row. The auditorium was packed with proud parents, grandparents holding bouquets, kids waving wildly at their families. You expected her to feel the absence, but she didn't. She beamed. She delivered her line. She took her bow. And when she spotted you and Sean in the crowd, she waved so hard, her headband nearly slipped off. That was it. That was enough. Later that night, as you tucked her in, Eden whispered, I don't think Grandma liked me much, but I'm glad I gave her the box. You sat down beside her. Why's that, honey? She thought for a moment, then said, because now I don't wonder anymore. And I don't need her to like me, I just need me to like me. You felt your throat tighten, you kissed her forehead and turned off the lamp, but you couldn't sleep for a long time that night because the words kept echoing in your head. I don't need her to like me, I just need me to like me. That's what peace sounds like when it's spoken by a 7-year-old. And that's when you really knew that she was going to be okay. You didn't lose a family, you gained a freedom you didn't know how to name until now. The freedom to not chase approval, the freedom to not perform your worth, the freedom to simply be as you are, as a mother, as a wife, as a woman. And Eden, she gained something too. She gained truth, and in that truth, she planted something stronger than tradition, a sense of self no one could take from her again. Right beside Eden's first baby shoes, a faded hospital bracelet and the pink pacifier she refused after month 3. You didn't keep it as a trophy, you kept it as a reminder of the day your daughter, just 7 years old, stood up in a room full of people who made her feel like a shadow and claimed her place anyway. You opened that drawer sometimes, not often, but enough. Enough to remember how far you've come, how far she's come, because it wasn't just a red box, it was everything you'd bottled up, folded into paper, inked in truth, and sealed with quiet love. You used to think strength meant keeping peace. Now you know real peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from standing behind someone when they finally say enough. These days life is quieter, not lonely, just quieter, more deliberate. You don't rush through holidays anymore. You don't dread the dinner table wondering who will look past your child. You don't weigh every word, every gesture wondering if you're too much or not enough. You are exactly what you need to be. A mother, a protector, a witness, and now finally a participant in your own story. You've started your own traditions, not because you had to replace the old ones, but because you realized most of them were never yours to begin with. Now Eden chooses the ornaments. She makes cards by hand and never hesitates to sign them with love. She doesn't ask if Maddie and Jonah will be at the party. She knows what real connection looks like now. She knows it has nothing to do with matching pajamas or family trees. It has everything to do with how someone makes you feel when no one else is watching. You still think about that brunch, sometimes in the shower, sometimes when folding laundry. It sneaks up like memory does, soft, sharp, and sudden. Not the scream, not the letter, not even the look on Gloria's face. But Eden, standing in that gold dress, box in hand, voice steady, heart wide open, that image is stitched into your bones now because it taught you something. You used to believe love had to be proven. Now you know it only has to be protected. One Sunday afternoon, Eden was coloring on the patio while Sean read beside her. The sun was soft. The breeze smelled like rosemary from the neighbor's garden. You watched her for a long time before asking, "Do you ever miss that side of the family?" She didn't look up. "No," she said, I just hope they're nicer to the next kid who brings them a box." You swallowed the lump in your throat because there it was again. That unshakable truth wrapped in the voice of a child who now knows she is enough. You don't know if Gloria ever talks about you, or Sean, or Eden. Maybe she tells herself a different version of the story, one where she was misunderstood, one where you drove a wedge, one where she didn't mean it that way. But you've stopped caring because healing doesn't require someone else's apology. It requires your own permission. Permission to let go. Permission to grow forward. Permission to choose peace over performance. And you've chosen all of it. One evening, as you tuck Eden into bed, she holds up her wrist. The bracelet Maddie gave her still sparkles. The tiny heart charm swings gently as she plays with the blanket seam. "Can I keep this forever?" she asks. You smile, tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "Yes, baby, you can keep it as long as you want." She nods and turns over already halfway to dreaming, but you linger a little longer, not because she needs you to, but because for the first time in years, you're not afraid of the quiet. Later that night, you open the drawer again, touch the box just once. The paper is a little worn at the edges. The frame still gleams under soft light. And the letter stays folded because you don't need to read it again. You already carry its message. She is yours, and if they can't love her, they don't get to love you either. That truth lives in your marrow now. You pour yourself a glass of water, look out the window at the moon sitting low and calm over the neighborhood. And for once, there's nothing left to prove, nothing left to fear. No more pretending, no more performing, no more hoping for inclusion in places that demanded your silence. You turn off the light, pull the blanket up to your chin, and let your body rest, because in the silence she left behind, you didn't just rebuild, you rose. Some stories end with shouting matches. This one ended with a 7-year-old placing a truth-filled box in front of someone who'd spent years pretending she didn't exist. She didn't cry, she didn't flinch. She just stood her ground. And in doing so, she reminded us all of something we often forget. Family is not who shares your name, it's who defends your worth when no one else will. If this story moved you, if it brought to mind a person you've stood up for or wish you had, please leave a comment below. Your thoughts are not just welcome, they're the heartbeat of this channel. Subscribe to Revenge Stories from 94 to help us reach that first 1,000 subscribers. It's your support that gives me the strength to continue sharing stories that aren't just revenge, they're revelations. Remember, the smallest voices often carry the loudest truths, and some boxes don't explode, they expose on an episode.